Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about how to attract, engage, and retain clients to your veterinary practice using digital marketing. My name is Brandon Brashears. I hope you're doing amazing. Apologize for the delay between episodes, but I was sick and lost my voice, so I wasn't able to record these intros. So thanks for your patience. And by the way, we're going to be doing weekly episodes again here. And be sure to leave me a comment. Let me know, do you like the in-between episodes? I've got some feedback from people that they like them. I've just been so busy that I haven't been putting them out, but I'm going to be bringing them back most likely. So let me know if you like those in the comments and if they're helpful for you or not, because if you like them, I'll be sure to bring them back. In today's episode, we have another amazing guest. It is Harrison King from kingmediamarketing.com. He's the co-founder of that. And if you've never heard of Harrison, you've probably seen some of the content that he's made. He is partnered with Dr. Emily King, that's his mom, who is the founder and owner of All Star Veterinary Clinic. And Harrison and Dr. King teamed up together to create some really incredible marketing. The stuff that they do on specifically Instagram is some of the best out there, in my opinion. So they have a really amazing mix of content when it comes to content types, very heavily focused on video, but they're just doing, I think, some of the best video marketing in the veterinary industry. So I've mentioned them a few times in the podcast beforehand that I was a fan. And so I reached out to Harrison and he was totally up for being on the podcast. And in this episode, he talks about all the insights that he's learned in helping to get All Star Vet, and specifically go check out their Instagram, their TikTok, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But the content that they produce is amazing, and I wanted to deep dive into content creation. And I think that Harrison's probably one of the best people to talk to in the industry about that. So if you're thinking about creating content for your veterinary practice, this episode is going to be very beneficial. If you want to create content at the next level, this is going to be a really, really helpful episode. So before today's episode, we have two sponsors for the podcast. Are you looking to get better SEO ranking for your veterinary practice? Probably everyone I know that runs a veterinary hospital would be benefited from having better local SEO. And that's why I want to give you some free tools from one of today's sponsors. It is whitespark.ca. If you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO, that's veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO, you can sign up to get a free account to give you some amazing SEO tools. Whitespark gives you everything that you need for better local SEO. If you haven't heard the episode I did with Darren Shaw, be sure to go back and look at it. He is the founder and owner of this company. It is fantastic. They have Google Business Profile Management, local rank tracking, local citation finder, reputation builder. They even have professional SEO services if that's something that you're looking for. So go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO to check out Whitespark and the free tools that they have available for you. You won't be disappointed. They're really cool. Let me know what you think too. If you need help with any of that, please don't hesitate to reach out. But again, veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO. Have you ever said to yourself, I wish I knew where these clients were coming from? If you've ever been wondering, what is actually driving conversions in your practice, then I have something that I think will be great for you, and that is CallRail. CallRail is a fantastic tool that allows you to measure and see where your conversions are coming from and which of the calls and call sources are driving clients into your practice. CallRail makes it really simple to not only see where your calls are coming from, but the AI tools that they have that track and record the conversation so that you can assign outcomes to the calls is amazing. I highly suggest all of the clients that I have use CallRail. And if you've ever wondered, where are my clients coming from? You can try CallRail out for 2 weeks for free. If you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/CallRail, you'll be able to try CallRail for yourself and finally know where your clients are. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Harrison. I appreciate it. It's great to meet you here. So thank you for being generous and coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you about everything marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in marketing. And I think we'll talk a lot about probably Dr. King and how you helped her
Oh yeah.
get started
Yeah.
with the podcast and with
Yeah.
all the things you do for her too.
Oh boy. All right, where do I start? So in college I went to college to get a video game design degree. And I was actually going to be a level designer.
Cool.
I was a little too late into college to realize I didn't want to do that. And I remember thinking back senior year, like, what can I possibly change to? Like, it's too late. Like, what can I do? And I thought back to, my hobbies, and I have always been into video editing,
Hmm.
and I have always been into cameras. And I decided to take a go at that. And I got an internship at a production company called 90 Degrees West in St. Louis. And I interned there for a few months. And I'm very, very grateful to the owner of that company, Scott Conger, who helped me find my way and just helped me figure out what I wanted to do with my career. And so I basically took that experience and I kind of paired it with social media, because I've always been very social media savvy. I've always been a techie. Like, I've always been up to date on everything social media trends just by happenstance. And I came to the idea that, what if I paired my video experience with my social media experience at the time? And I didn't have a job after college. And so I was thinking of what to do next. And my parents were actually looking into more marketing efforts for their clinic, All Star Veterinary Clinic.
Yeah.
And I went to them and I basically proposed, I think it was like a 10-page business plan. And I was like, hey, this is what I think we can accomplish with the clinic. I know you're wanting to move away from your marketing company. I know this is a risk. I know that you don't know like how well this is going to work hiring your son. Like, I don't know, so like,
For sure.
if we do this, like, I am going to do it right. And they're like, okay. So they hired me, and here we are, 5.5 years later. So it's been crazy, honestly. I never would have thought that we would be in the position where we are now. It's like with the clinic, with my mom's stuff, Dr. King, with her stuff. And it's been a wild ride, and I'm ready for more. So it's great stuff.
That's amazing. So, um, with the strategy that you developed for your mom's practice and
Mhm.
things, I noticed that you have a big emphasis on Instagram.
Mhm.
Um, did you initially plan just to work on Instagram first, or what was your kind of strategy going into it? And I mean, 5 years ago the world's completely different. five
Right.
years
Yeah. Right.
forward, but
That's pre-COVID. It feels like 10 years ago.
it feels like
So-
last century for sure.
yeah,
Like the
exactly.
whole world changed for sure.
Yeah. Mhm.
Definitely. But was it your plan to go Instagram and Facebook first, or what? How did you approach it when you were thinking about that?
No, yeah, great question. So with Facebook, they had already had a pretty decent Facebook following,
Mhm.
and when I came in, I was actually doing a lot of Google ads and Facebook ads as well. So we
Mhm.
were growing our following on top of that. On Instagram and TikTok are interesting, because when I started, we had around like 6 to 8 thousand followers, and I was kind of just I was kind of going along with what the previous person was doing, which was what the practice manager was running the Instagram page. And then I think once I started the TikTok page, I kind of had a revelation, because I remember a lot of the employees at the clinic were saying like, Harrison, you got to start on TikTok. Like, you got to do it. And I remember, this was back when TikTok was really like a dancing app. Like,
Yeah,
it
it was
was
like
back when,
13-year-old dancing app. It was like everybody's like,
yes.
"There's too young of kids. It's weird. Don't do
Yeah, yes,
it.
exactly. And
Don't be a
it was
creep on TikTok."
exactly. It was right when it transitioned from Musically to TikTok, and I just didn't see the value in it, and I was very, very naive in doing that. And so I remember I was uploading all of this like stuff just to trying to see like what's stuck on TikTok and Instagram, obvious and honestly. And on TikTok, we uploaded this one video, and it was a how-to video for veterinarians and just the vet med industry in general. And it was how to administer insulin to a diabetic dog.
Mhm.
And that video ended up getting like 500,000 views, and like immediately just clicked in my head. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is so much more than the dancing app. I was like, this is a search engine. Like, people are going to search for how-tos. People are going to search for all this educational content, like inspirational content, motivational content, all this stuff. And I think that's when it clicked, and where I realized like, this is a huge opportunity. We need to jump on this now. And so I think in that year, I don't remember when that was. It was 2, 3 years ago. I mean, we uploaded every single day from that day for a year and a half, I think.
Hmm.
And we grew to the following that we have now on TikTok and on Instagram. So it was a crazy, coincidence that happened. But I always say that social media involves a little bit of strategy and a lot of luck.
Hmm.
So it was, yeah, it was crazy.
That's that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that, and along with that, a little bit of strategy and a lot of luck? Do you think that if you just stick at it long enough with the strategy, you'll eventually get it, or do you
Mhm.
think it is just you kind of got to have something hit lucky? Because just curious on your thought there.
No, yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I think that for someone like me, I think it's kind of transitioned to half strategy, half luck, because I kind of know what the algorithm wants for
Hmm.
veterinarians and other industries as well. I truly think that King Media has it down to a T. If you want to grow your veterinary following, like we just have it down, like we do. But I think for the average person, I do think it involves a lot of luck because I
Sure.
don't think that they quite understand the the strategies and the algorithms that go behind a lot of these social media platforms, and no fault of their own. I mean, they're just uploading content to upload content. That's how it was back in the day. You didn't really have to worry about any of these strategies or what the algorithm liked and didn't like viewing habits, all these other things. You just uploaded content for the fun of it. And if something stuck, then you'd run with it. But I think that for the average person, it does involve a lot of luck. Yeah.
Definitely.
But I do think though, if you do stick with it, then like if you're uploading every single day, I mean, something's gonna pop. I mean,
Sure.
you're gonna get something regardless. I mean, the odds are in your favor.
Agreed. I think the topic is good too. I had do you know who Daryl Eves is?
I do not know.
He's it was on the last episode. He's a YouTube coach, and he's like Mr.
Mm.
Beast YouTube coach, and he's got
Oh,
all these,
really? Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
super awesome. But he was talking about YouTube, obviously, because that's what he knows.
Hmm.
And I was trying to bring it in
Hmm.
terms of short form content and things.
Sure.
But he was saying that he thinks YouTube is a bigger opportunity than like the media side of it, even than the
Hmm.
practice, right? Because he's got
Yeah,
clients that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in
of
AdSense
course.
and stuff.
Hmm.
And I'm always curious when I see these big veterinary channels, and there's not very
Hmm.
many veterinary practices. Has
Hmm.
this side of the business become more of a business than, or is it still primarily just driving client growth and client acquisition? Or how are you approaching it now? Because I mean, you've got like I think 280,000 followers on TikTok and
Hmm.
92,000 on Instagram. Like that's a
Hmm.
media company business in itself, right? Which is
Yeah.
wild. Like sponsorships, brand deals,
Yes. Hmm.
rev share, all
Yeah.
kinds of things. So
Yeah. No.
big deal. Like that's a big channels for sure.
Mhm.
Has that become more of a business, or are you still primarily trying to focus on client acquisition and things?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think at the beginning, when we were getting that following, I think that we were seeing a huge growth of new clients because people were discovering who we were, not locally, but also just around the country and around the world. But I know for a fact because I saw the client numbers. I would keep up with the client numbers every month. Back when we first exploded, and we were getting new clients. Like it was probably a 30 to 40% jump in clients, which was great to see. Eventually that teetered out just because, I mean, you can only reach so many people through social media.
Sure.
And it teetered out at that high number where we exploded. But um, in terms of the business side of sponsorships and all of that, I think with the clinic, it's difficult to get sponsorships, or with the clinic account, I should say, accounts, it's difficult to get sponsorships because it is a company in and of itself. And so,
Mhm.
if we to be honest, we haven't taken or done anything with sponsorships throughout this entire time. I think mainly because one, it is just a little, especially now that the clinic is not technically owned by my mom, Dr. Emily King, anymore. It's owned by Southern Veterinary Partners. I think it's a little bit more difficult to run these sponsorships up the chain. And I also think that, if you are sponsored by this company, if you say you're sponsored by Hills, then Hills is representing everybody within the clinic, and then also Southern Veterinary Partners as well. So I think it's just kind of muddies the water a little bit.
Mhm.
But I think with other clients though, other individual, brands and other smaller companies, I mean, yes, I mean, it has been a huge upside to, running these accounts and seeing them grow, like getting those sponsorships. I mean, it's amazing. Like once you finally reach that amount of growth where these people start reaching out to you and it's like, yes, like we did it. Like we're going to keep going, but it's great to finally get those sponsorship emails and just see that growth.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
With respect to the client volume and things in practice,
Mhm.
are you consistently kind of always busy, or how would you say the impact of this has been on the practice and client base? I mean,
Mhm.
you're reaching more than just your town, right?
Mhm.
That's the question I get a lot of times is, if we create content and it does well and it goes viral, it's not going to really help us because we have,
Mhm.
local. So, and just for context too, I do paid
Mhm.
ads for people. So I just do
Okay.
Google ads, right? So I'm very
Mhm.
tactical. We're only targeting stuff that's going to drive people in the door.
Right.
But I see so much value in having a high level of production and like a
Mhm.
content strategy, right? All the things
Mhm.
that you do, it's so valuable. But the question that I always get, and I don't have the answer to because I'm just a paid ads guy, is
Right.
that, like, what does this actually do to drive clients in, and what would you
Mhm.
say the ROI is on this? That's the question they always want, even with,
Right.
and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But what do you
Mhm.
think about those
Yeah.
things?
No, that's a great question. And to be quite honest, we struggled with that when I was still working at the clinic exclusively. We struggled with that for quite some time because they wanted to see the numbers. They wanted to see, okay, like if we get 100,000 views on this, what does that look like in terms
Sure.
of clients coming into the door? And I think, it has still been it's still been difficult to kind of define those numbers. But I think that when you look at social media ads and you look at, even Google ads, less so Google ads, but more so social media ads, I mean, you need to have the content on your social media platforms to even make those kinds of ads on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I think that if somebody were to see an ad on social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, and they go to your page and you're not doing anything, I don't think that that bodes well for the company in general. I don't think that bodes well for sales either.
Mhm.
But like I said earlier, I think that when we first exploded, I think that if we did not keep continuing the content, like, every day or
Mhm.
even every other day, I don't think that we would have seen the growth in clients. Because I think that you can't just wait for one viral video to explode or one video to explode and go viral and expect to get all of these clients. I just don't think that's how it works. Or I know for a fact that's not how it works. And you just need to keep at it. And I think a lot of people think that it needs to be this whole, production. You need to have this whole production to, produce all this content. When in reality, a lot of these people you can just use your phone. I mean, it's not a big deal to just use your phone. I think when we started stuff at the clinic, I was like, okay, we're going to use like these high quality cameras and stuff because it's just going to set us apart even more because all of these people are using their phones. But now viewing habits and viewers are starting to kind of go back to wanting more like, phone content because
Mhm.
it's just more personal.
Definitely.
I think if they see a high quality video, they're like, oh, maybe that's going to be like a commercial or an ad. But I think when we first started, like I said, I think it was just something to differentiate us. Um, but but yeah. So
So that was actually going to be one of the questions that I had next, which
mhm,
is a good segue into it, which is production
mhm,
and content quality. So,
mhm,
especially within All Star, you have a pretty significant mix of content types on there.
mhm,
What does that production look like as far as making this content? Like, how does that look in
mhm.
practice, and how much work is it?
Well, it's a lot of work.
I bet so. Looks
It
like
is a
it.
lot of it is a lot of work. Yes, I will say that since leaving the clinic and them kind of becoming a client of mine and not
Hmm.
exclusively working for them, we have kind of dialed back a bit on the like heavy production side.
Sure.
Um, and we have kind of been doing more like phone content. And I've been kind of trying to, see what that looks like and how well it does. But if when I was doing full on, high quality camera, production videos, I mean, for example, the vet clinic, which is like our office spinoff, those took a long time.
Yeah.
We would have to, I mean, most of the time we were staying after work. I would have, people stay after work and they would want to because I mean, they love doing this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And and they would stay after work or they would do it over the lunch break, and we would just crank it out in an hour or two, and that would be it. I think for the trending sounds and whatnot, the stuff that we do on my phone or any phone really, I think that it takes, we can film anywhere from like 10 to 15 in like an hour.
Mhm.
And that's just because it's just, they're easier to do. But yeah, I mean, when we were doing stuff with, my Sony cameras, I mean, it would take quite some time, like the vet clinic series. Yeah.
Definitely. That,
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to types of content, do you
Mhm.
think, or when you work with clients rather, do you think that you should have like three or is there a certain number of types of content? Like I see that you
Mhm.
have stuff that is like consistently a type of content on the All Star
Mhm.
practice page. Um,
Mhm.
like podcasts are long form, and
Mhm.
then like just talking to the camera videos or
Mhm.
kind of like skits and funny things and trends and stuff.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
how do you approach that with
Yeah,
practices?
great question. I think that I always tell clients you have to have either educational, inspirational, or motivational content. And if you can do all three, that's great. If not, then you just got to pick one or two. I do think though that if you just stick with one, you're not going to grow as much as you might think. I think that if you just stick with educational content, I don't know if you will. I actually know for a fact you won't grow
Yeah.
to reach a wider audience. And honestly, that's kind of where the vet clinic series came into play, because I was like, I want to reach more people. Like I want to reach more people than just the vet med community or industry. And how do we do that? And I've
Hmm.
always been a huge fan of the Office series. And I was like, well, what if we did like a vet med spin-off of the Office? And the Office is known around the world. So I was like,
Yeah.
why don't we just do something like that? And it, spoke for itself. But I definitely think though, if you can fit your content within those three pillars, educational, inspirational, or motivational, I mean, that's a great head start above most people.
I like that. That's good, like easy categories that you can file
Hmm.
things under.
Hmm.
What mix do you try to go for? Because I know that veterinary practices try to go all educational,
Hmm.
and it just ends up being boring, right? Nobody wants to read
Hmm.
a textbook, and that's kind of what people are making.
Yep. Hmm.
So what do you try to shoot for mix on? Obviously, as many of those as possible per video, but do you
Hmm.
suggest starting with something or like adding inspirational to educational,
Hmm.
or how do you think that works?
Yeah, I think for the clinic, I think, and it's different for every client, but I think for the clinic, I would say it's probably 30, well, I don't know. I mean, it's probably 30% inspirational, or sorry, 30% educational. Actually, I don't know. Let's see here. It's probably 40% educational. It's
Hmm.
probably 30% inspirational, and then probably another 30% that's just like funny, like skits and whatnot. Um, and like I said, I mean, I think it's different for every client. I mean, you could have like 80% funny skits, 20% educational. I think it just depends on if you're just starting out, what you think sticks. So like if a funny skit ends up doing super well, then it's like, okay, like this is what my audience wants to see. Let's keep doing that. And I think that's a huge mistake that I see a lot of people make, is that
Hmm.
they will have this one video, do well above the others. And doing well is different for everybody. But if it's a person with 1,000 followers and they get a video with, a 50,000 view video, then I'll see them do something completely different for the next 5 videos. It's like, no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. It's like, you need to do exactly what you did in this video for the next however long, and just see what happens, see what sticks. Or just see what happens and see if that is truly what people want from your content. Um, but yeah, I would say for the clinic, I would say that is kind of the ratio in terms of what we try to provide in terms of content. And honestly, it's changed over the years, because I think we really King Media prides ourselves on trying to really stay up to date with like viewing trends and viewing habits of these people that are watching these videos, because it's constantly changing.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
So when you're creating content, are you creating for a single platform and then pushing to others, or are you creating for each platform individually?
That's another great question. So ideally, in an ideal world, you would want to create content for you want to create different
I
kinds of
agree.
content for different
Yeah.
platforms. And this is another mistake I think that people make, is that they think that somebody on Instagram, like some of your followers on Instagram, the video that they watched, your TikTok followers are also going to watch. That's not the case. Your
Yeah.
TikTok audience is different from your Instagram audience, is different from your Facebook audience. And so in an ideal world, you would create different kinds of content for those different platforms. And I think, for those, creating different kinds of content for those platforms can be very, very, very difficult, especially if you have a client that is coming to you saying like, hey, we want to upload every day on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Especially if you're a one-man band, I think that can be difficult. And so
Definitely.
what I usually, or at least as of right now, what I am doing is I am trying my best to create different kinds of content for different platforms. But sometimes I will just take a video that was really meant for TikTok and post it on Instagram and Facebook because I would rather post something over nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, honestly, it ends up working. Other times it doesn't because of exactly, what I've said. But I do think that if you can, I would try and create different kinds of content for different platforms. Like using the clinic as an example, I think our Facebook audience really likes photos of pets in the team.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really care for videos unless like they're like kind of these like crazy, wacky videos, kind of like the office stuff, right?
Sure.
Our TikTok audience is more so into like the vet clinic videos. They're into those like, really funny stuff. Our Instagram audience is a little bit of both. They're a little bit of educational and the funny side of stuff. And honestly, TikTok and Instagram, they are almost 90% video content,
Mm-hmm.
while Facebook is honestly the other way around. So it just depends on what you can, what your bandwidth in terms of creating that content. And I also am a huge advocate for mental health in this space. So please do not bog yourself down. Like if you are trying to upload every day, like I would so much rather you keep your mental health, in check and
Yeah.
upload consistently 3 to 4 times a week than just really try to, upload every single day and just break yourself down.
Yeah. People burn out. That's for sure. Happening. Even the biggest YouTubers go
Yeah.
and burn out. Absolutely. And they're making
Yeah.
millions of dollars a month.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's
We've
big
seen that
incentive.
just recently with, I don't know how much you keep up with the YouTube space, but with like Matt Pat and like all these
Yeah.
other people,
There was a
I
month
mean,
where all of the YouTubers quit.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. People are like, what's going on? It's
Yeah,
like,
it was
well,
really weird. There was seriously like
mhm,
a dozen high profile YouTubers that just
mhm,
said, I'm stepping away, which is
yeah.
interesting.
Mhm,
Yeah, definitely. So, with following up on that last question, do you think
yeah.
that platforms are used better for different stages of the funnel, or do you approach them from that mindset, or are you just thinking about audience in that platform? And I'll give you an example. I was talking to one of my clients who is younger and she is really good at TikTok. And she said that TikTok is really good for top of funnel. And then Instagram feels like it's actually replacing, especially with younger generation, it's replacing your website where people will go and convert more on Instagram. And then Facebook is just for the old people, is what
Yeah,
she said.
that's exactly right.
She's like, like the 35-year-olds. I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
37. Great. But I thought that was an interesting take.
Mhm,
Well, she didn't frame it in that way, but that's what I took from it, right? So the platforms are different funnel kind of stage use. So in TikTok, you still get,
mhm,
well, it looks like you get more reach on TikTok still. So it's probably
mhm,
better for top of funnel.
mhm,
Instagram's probably better for middle and bottom.
mhm.
And then Facebook is just kind of weird. But what do you think about
Yeah.
that?
Honestly, I would completely agree with her. I
Okay.
don't know if I can add much more to that. Honestly, you worded it perfectly. I think that you're starting to the TikTok is always they're always changing things up for the better
Yeah.
or for worse. And TikTok Shop has been a huge thing now
Oh,
on
yeah.
TikTok, and you can just that's exactly what she was talking about. With all of that stuff, and Instagram is like you said for the middle and bottom funnel. I think though on both of these platforms though you need to basically make that funnel like as small as you possibly can. I see a lot of clients who this is a good example. One of the plumbing companies that or one of the clients that I just got recently, they're a plumbing company or a plumbing sales company, and they were wanting to get more leads just through content and other things in general. And I was looking at their Instagram page and their TikTok page, and I just noticed that like the funnel to get that sale was so long. Like you would just go to, they had their website link, but even if you go to even if you click on that link, like you don't know where to go. And so I think a lot of I think a lot of people will not shorten that funnel. And so you need to really like, I would even recommend just like putting like the contact form in your link. So that way, when they click that link, they are immediately taken to uh, that lead and eventually that conversion. But I
That's
would agree with everything that that person said, though.
her company is, that she works with is called Spot On, and her name's Ariel Putter, and they have.
Mhm.
Have you heard of Spot On?
That does sound vaguely familiar.
They have
Yeah.
like 20 something million likes last time I checked on their TikTok. It's
Hmm.
massive.
Hmm.
Pretty interesting. She's really good at it. Very
Hmm.
cool. But um, that's, I think, very interesting that you say that. I don't think most practices consider that.
Hmm.
You're going to lose like most of the time 80% of traffic every time you make them do another click. So if they go
Hmm.
to the site, then they're going to bounce 80% of the time. That's a really good tip.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So with content, and that being the case, right? When I work with clients as paid ads, it's different than social organic stuff,
Hmm.
right? But I usually suggest we start at bottom of the funnel and then work our way up.
Right.
Is that what you suggest too with your clients, or how do you figure out where to start generally?
I mean, yeah, I would agree with that. Just starting with the bottom funnel and moving up. I just think honestly, it's the best way to go. So you don't um so you don't just like lose track along the way. I think, but I would agree with you that starting with the bottom funnel is the way to go. Yeah.
Got it. So then when let's say you're working with a practice or veterinary practices, like, hey,
Mhm.
Harrison, let's work together and stuff. Would you suggest starting on one platform, or would you go and try to hit everything all at once?
Well, honestly, I think it depends on what they're willing to take on. I think that if they come to me and they're like, hey, we are so ready to do this. Like we are, we're all in. We want to do all the platforms. Like we'll dedicate whatever time you want. Like, and I love those clients because
Hmm.
they are like they understand the importance of social media and they get it and they want something from it. But I think though I don't think it's a bad idea though to look at what you are trying to achieve with your goal of starting on social media and seeing, okay, what platforms would do best for my company.
Hmm.
Because like you said, I mean, I don't really know if for like, depending on the company, I don't really know if Facebook is really, where you should put that effort. I think that maybe you should start with Instagram and TikTok, or maybe you start with all three. And if you start to see traction on the other two and not, this one, then maybe you stop. But I think that there are certain platforms that will help your business get those leads and, you can make those conversions better over other platforms. I think especially when you start out, I think that instead of, really putting all this effort into however many platforms you do, whether it's, like LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, like really focus on what you think would work best for your company and put the effort towards those platforms.
Definitely. That's what I do for myself. I mostly post to
Mhm.
LinkedIn. I do LinkedIn
Mhm.
first, and then I just post everywhere else because I don't have the time, or I
Right.
don't want to learn
Exactly.
Instagram. I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to do that. I'll post better than nothing, but
Right.
I don't have any expectations for it there,
Sure.
for sure. And yeah, I also wanted to jump back into what you were saying about TikTok Shop, and
Mhm.
I think that is a really big deal.
Mhm.
I've bought so much stuff from there actually, and the process is fantastic. It's easy to buy stuff.
Mhm.
It seems like they're really subsidizing that platform and making like
Yeah.
good deals and stuff just to acquire customers and
Mhm.
build purchase data. Like
Mhm.
Instagram and Facebook used to be the best in ad targeting
Mhm.
because they were tracking your purchases across everywhere on the internet. And
Mhm.
then iOS 14 happened and they stopped that.
Mhm.
And so I think TikTok's push for native purchases is probably one of the most important things they've done in terms of being able to target in a meaningful way with ads. Because I haven't seen
Right.
too much success with ads there.
Mhm.
Do you do ads on TikTok at all, or not really?
No, not as of recently. We do more ads on Instagram and Facebook, to be honest with you. But no, we don't. I keep up with, the ongoings of what's going on with TikTok ads and what's
Hmm.
changing. And but no, I have not had the opportunity yet to do TikTok ads for a company. I think we're currently I was supposed to do it. I was supposed to do something like with TikTok ads with a very, very large company within vet med, but you know how the process goes with companies
Yeah,
like that. Like it just takes forever to get things approved. So we have not had any opportunities yet, though, to do TikTok ads.
definitely. I think it would work much better for direct to consumer products that are
Right.
like scalable and not
Right.
regional business in
Hmm.
general for now. But I
Hmm.
think that it's coming and it's going to be a big deal when it gets a little bit better for sure. They
Yeah.
have native lead forms and all kinds of cool things there.
Yeah.
Um, one thing I wanted to talk to you about was just production level in general. So you mentioned phones. Would you suggest people? Well, I mean, let's talk about what people are doing right now, which is generally the like
Hmm.
pull out a phone, no planning, like
Hmm.
make something
Hmm.
versus what you do, which is like planning and scheduling and batching and stuff like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
What would you think would be some of the things that people could do immediately to just get better quality and um, actually be intentional about? I,
Yeah.
I think because everybody posts things, it's like a skill that people think, oh, I can do that because I can
Hmm.
post, and they
Hmm.
don't realize how much goes into it. So,
Hmm.
like for example, with your All Star, what does a typical week look like for production, and how much planning
Hmm.
goes into that?
Great question. So yeah, to answer that question, I usually plan content for maybe maybe 2 hours. Like on I usually plan content on a Sunday.
Hmm.
Um, and then that following week we'll schedule a day to film content, and it's usually an hour. If it's an irregular amount of content, like a regularly large amount of content, then we'll schedule 2 hours. But usually it's just an hour. Um, but that and like I've said recently, we've been doing a lot of stuff on my phone. And that's a great way to answer the other question that you had, was like in terms of production, like what should you do, you know? And I think that right now, I think honestly you should use your phone. I think that right now, I don't think that people are really interested in the high quality, high budget kind of videos. I think that they are more so interested in these personalized, uh, videos shot on your phone, because I think as soon as you just know when a video is shot on a phone. And so as
Sure.
soon as it comes across your feed, you're like, oh, this was shot by a person. And so it's like, that's immediately clicks in somebody's head. So it's like, okay, then what is this video? So then they'll watch and how it goes. But I think that right now, in terms of viewing habits, people really want to make those connections with other people. I think that they
Hmm.
really want to, see the personalities of these people. I mean, when we were doing stuff with my mom, because she has her own account now, Dr. Emily King, and it took her a very long time to understand that people just want to see you as a person. I think it was interesting because when we first started, she was speaking to the camera how she thought people wanted to see her.
Sure.
When in reality, she really should just be speaking as she would to anybody else, because that's what people want to see. And so I think it just is so easy to film content on your phone and achieve that goal. And then in reality, or then in the end, just gain success from all of those things. And so I would recommend I would recommend just starting on your phone. I would say honestly, what goes in hand with shooting on your phone is just like your content strategy and your what kind of content you want to bring to your eventual audience. And so
Sure.
I would say honestly, that's almost as important as choosing what equipment you want to film on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off that conversation with Daryl that I had,
Mhm.
a lot more of what he does goes into the thought and planning of the video ideas in
Yeah.
particular. There's just
Hmm.
so much work into the idea, the
Oh
hook, the
yeah.
headlines,
Yeah.
and the
Hmm. The hook. Yep.
thumbnail,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Because it's a different platform for sure. So
Yeah.
when it comes to especially short form video, are you thinking about like trends? Are you thinking about topics. How are you going about that brainstorming to get something that you think will work?
Yeah, great question. I think going into what you just said, I think hooks are probably the most important part of any kind of content planning strategy, anything. Any kind of informational video or educational video that I do with anybody, I always include a hook of some kind. And I think that those are just so important. I would say the other thing that people should be paying attention to right now is the aspect of storytelling. I don't think I think people are, really missing the mark on just the idea of storytelling. And I think Mr. Beast, if you look at all of his stuff, and this isn't short form, but this relates back to it, he's done a much better job recently of, instead of being in your face and really starting off the video with like, hey, like, he, instead of really being in your face, he really slows it down and really tells a story to start with and then gets right into it. And I think that goes right back to what I was saying earlier, is that people's viewing habits are changing. They don't
Hmm.
really want to they don't really want to see all of these flashy edits or, this like in your face stuff, because honestly, I think people are tired. I think they're tired of their attention spans getting so short. I think they're
Yeah.
tired of, I think they're just mentally, they're subconsciously mentally tired. And so I
Yeah.
think it's so refreshing when somebody sits down, has minimal edits, is telling a story with a good hook. I think it's so refreshing to the mind. And that's why I think that kind of content is just blowing up right now.
Sure. I agree with you. Yeah, I'm thinking like, are you familiar with Sam Sulek, the bodybuilder guy?
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
most of
absolutely.
the audience here probably doesn't know who he is because it's mostly female,
Right.
right? But there's a bodybuilder whose name's Sam Sulek, and he just uploads every single day,
Yep.
and it's unedited. He's
Mhm,
just talking in his car. He talks
mhm,
slowly. There's no jump
yep.
cuts, no fancy. It's
Mhm,
just every day he's consistent,
yeah,
and it's like you're hanging out with a buddy
yeah.
basically, and like
And I
doing
would argue,
nothing.
and I would argue that that's honestly where people started to pay attention to that change, because
Yeah,
he
that I
really, I
think
mean,
he.
yeah, I mean, he really unintentionally started that, because I think even on short form, which is known for being kind of quick, he really just took his time and like, just like, even if it was a minute long, like it felt just like he was, like I said earlier, he was just talking, like he's just talking to, like if somebody was literally, you would think that somebody was right there, because
Yeah,
he's literally just talking and just slowing everything down. It was such a refresher
it
for
is
just
different.
social
Yeah.
media and all of that in general.
Yeah, you compare that to, yeah, Mr. Beast video where it's like short form that's compiled, and it's like
Mhm,
there's five storylines, and
mhm.
it's amazing.
Yeah,
It's just the
yeah.
the gravity of like everything he does.
Mhm,
Definitely. But that's super interesting.
mhm,
And well, so the question about that, your mom, Dr. King, had started her
mhm.
own channel. Do you
Yep.
think now, especially having sold the practice to SVP, I didn't know that happened. But
Mhm.
do you wish you would have done a personal brand instead of a practice brand? Or are you happy that you went with the practice brand?
That's another great question. I think at the time the clinic brand was right for the time. I think
Okay.
that it was what we should have done, because it was the goal for the clinic was to bring in more clients, to bring more awareness to the clinic, to make us make us seen in more people's eyes, and we achieved that. And I think right now, I think it makes sense to do my mom's account now,
Mm-hmm.
because she is kind of winding down at the clinic. She's not doing all of her old responsibilities that she has been doing over the past 4 to 5 years. She'll see appointments from time to time. Yeah. I mean, and she'll fill in for doctors when they're on vacation, but she's not seeing appointments every day. She's not doing 5 to 8 surgeries a week. Like that's just not what she's doing. She's more in sort of a mentor coaching role. And so I think that she has more time to dedicate uh, to something like this.
Sure.
I do think though, right now, what I am finding trouble with is kind of juggling the images of both. So I think my mom has been, and rightfully so, been so attached to the clinic, right?
Sure.
And people associate her with the clinic. I think right now what we are trying to achieve is kind of pulling her away from that and making her her own thing,
Hmm.
because eventually she's going to leave the clinic. Like it's just
Sure.
a matter of a fact, right? It's time. Like, she's done her due diligence. Like she's been in the industry for 20 plus years and been in the clinic for 20 plus years, that she's ready to leave the clinic. She doesn't want to leave the industry. but she just wants to, take a step back. And so that's what I've had kind of trouble with, recently, is kind of separating both of those. But I think we are doing a good job right now of kind of establishing new personalities within the clinic that can kind of take over that brand. So if you look at a lot of our stuff recently, we've been putting a lot of content out with Dr. Ham and Dr. Duckwall, because we have right now 7, 8 veterinarians at All Star. And so there's so much to pick from in terms of who can be, I don't want to say the new face of the clinic, but because that's not really what it should be, but more so who can kind of take the lead on being in a lot of these videos. And so I think we've been doing a good job of kind of making that transition and kind of having my mom do her own thing and be successful with that, while the clinic can still stand on its own 2 feet without her, and still continue with, these different kinds of series and these different kinds of videos.
That's really interesting. So, do you think though, so if you were starting over again, would you have done it differently, or would you have done it the same way you did it?
Which one, the clinic or my mom's stuff?
Would you have maybe focused? Well, I guess this is a good question, because I know that there's a lot of veterinarians who are considering doing a personal brand, and then they're considering running their practice brand, right? And I think there's a lot of opportunities potentially, and I've seen this with tons of people for just all kinds of things. I mean, you could start a media company and a legit business as a personality veterinarian, so to speak, right? Or you could run a practice and have a successful practice.
Right.
Do you think you could successfully run a personal brand that lent itself to a practice, and then you're developing that personal brand as the primary, and then the practice gets the secondary benefit? And that way, when you leave, you could, the world is your oyster type thing, like brand deals, books, like speaking, who knows what. What do you think about that? Do you wish you would have done like a Dr. King primary and then been pushing over towards All Star and have basically the same effect? Or you think it's always the right decision? And obviously it's not always, but it's mostly the right decision to go for a business brand.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have changed anything.
Okay.
I think that it depends on your goals. So I think that for my mom's stuff is completely different. My mom's account right now is completely different than what the All Star stuff's, or my mom's goals for her account are completely different than what we were going to do for the clinic. I think for the clinic, we were really just trying to bring in more clients and bring in more awareness to the people surrounding the clinic and the teams within the clinic. And my mom's stuff now is more so really highlighting more about who she is as a person in her personality, and highlighting, the family and all of that kind of, and all of those kinds of things. I think that they have 2 separate goals. And so I think it would have been very, very difficult to achieve everything under just my mom's account. Because I think that, I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that I think that the audience maybe would get confused about, what are you trying to highlight? Are you trying to highlight, your homeschooling your kids and doing all these other hobbies while also doing vet med, or are you trying to bring in more clients and show the teams at the clinic and their quirks and all this other stuff? I think it would have been a little confusing, and there would have been some muddied waters by doing just my mom's back in the day.
Definitely, that makes sense. I do think that is a problem where people try to do too many things, and so usually just pick a lane that works and then sprinkle in additional stuff is a good kind of strategy. Well, the next question that I want to ask you is around editing in particular, because I think one of the biggest differences in your production is edit. Like that's just, it makes it stand out and it looks professional. So what are your thoughts on I guess editing and AI tools, especially? I think AI tools are coming out that are going to make editing more accessible. Do you think that people should try to do better edits, or should they just produce something in one cut, make it simple? Or should they kind of shoot for I think that production, I mean, like, but I'm sure it takes you hours to make a single short video, right? Like there's been times probably when you have edited things, it takes a long time. How much should people put into editing? And also, what are your thoughts on the AI editing tools?
How much should people put into editing? Um, Honestly, I wouldn't. Again, I know I'm not like clearly answering this, I guess, well, off the bat, but I think it depends on what you're trying to do.
Okay.
I think like if you are trying to do more vlog style content, I think that I don't really know if that really requires a whole lot of editing. I think that really you just kind of go and cut it together very simply, and then kind of go from there. I think that that's one of the things that I recognized early on was like this is how we can set ourselves apart. Was like I don't see anybody doing this where they are making this kind of content with the professional style of editing. Now
Hmm.
there have been more companies that have popped up, but I think that with the mixture of the content itself with the editing and then the social media strategies, I don't see anybody doing that. Most of these social media companies that I see are using like CapCut or all these other, kind of very, I don't want to say they're not simple, but like you can tell like they're not like professionally done.
Sure.
Um, but I think in terms of should you focus on editing, I mean, I would say if you want to do it, go for it. I mean, if you want to edit and really, make that add that kind of quality to your videos, go for it. And I mean, you can start with iMovie, start with, I don't even know if Windows Movie Maker is a thing anymore,
Oh,
but
there's DaVinci
start,
Resolve and stuff that's free,
yeah,
or Filmora and stuff like that.
yeah. DaVinci Resolve is a great one too. Like I mean, I personally use the Adobe Creative Suite, like Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere, all of those tools. But I mean, if you're just starting out, I would, yeah, I mean, DaVinci is a great free one. But if if you want to understand just the basics, yeah, I mean, stuff like iMovie and all of those are great as well. In terms of the AI tools, I actually use a few of them, and they are fantastic. I use them as tools. Like they're not meant to be taking. I mean, they're not going to take over my job. But like one of them, for example, we do a lot of podcasting at King Media. We do a lot of hosting, distribution, publishing, all of that, and we use an AI tool that will cut up the podcast automatically.
Hmm.
So it's absolutely amazing. In terms of AI tools, though, I'm really excited to see what happens over the next few years and see what can make our processes more efficient, because there are a lot of things that I do that some of it's so tedious, especially like I mean podcast editing is so tedious,
Yep.
and it was amazing finding this tool, and having it chop it up for me. In
Yep.
terms of the editing, in terms of how long it takes me, I don't know if you asked this question, but how long it takes me to edit certain things, I think we've gotten it down to where one short, say a 30, it depends on the time of length of the video, but if it's a 30-second video, it'll take me about an hour to really hammer it out and get
Hmm.
all the graphics and all the caption or closed captions and all that good stuff in it. Because we have so many clients now that we really did have to narrow down the processes of getting it down to around an hour and a half. We did actually just hire a video editor at the company, another video
Cool.
editor, which is going to be great to just hand off some of these videos and have him do his thing. But it usually, yeah, it takes me around an hour and a half to do those kinds of videos.
Definitely. That makes sense. Yeah, I use Opus Pro
Mm-hmm.
for my podcast clips, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
do editing at all. So I just
Right.
adjust the times, and it's good
Mm-hmm.
enough for me because I'm not an
Right.
editor. So it's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, Very cool. Well, tell me about how people can work with you and what that looks like generally.
Yeah, sure. So you can DM me on any social media platform. You can reach out on our website. We're always taking clients. We're always wanting to help, whether you want social media help or video editing help or a consultation, combination of all three. Doesn't matter. But we do have retainer clients, or sorry, not retainer clients. We have remote clients and local
Mhm.
clients. So um, like I said, I mean, I would say right now we're diversifying our portfolio. So right now, I would say our clientele is anywhere between 60% in the vet med industry and then 40% other clients. So, if you're in the vet med industry and want to, work together, reach out. I mean, we'd be happy to help. But also, if you're not in the vet med industry, we would love to help you out as well. So, yeah, that's how you can work with us.
Very cool. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a veterinary marketing podcast, so we're pretty limited, but we do have quite
Right.
quite a few listeners.
Right.
With that, what are you looking for when you're working with people? Like they have to be willing to be on camera, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
no brainer. But what else do you need from people that would be a good fit to work with you?
Yeah, great question. Somebody who sees the value in social media platforms, somebody who is willing to grow their brand and do what it takes to do that. Um, I, you know, I think it's important to show, regardless of if you're an influencer or just a company in general, that it's important to show your personality. And I think that if you're willing to do that, I love it. And so I think if you're willing to do all of those things, and you want to grow your brand, you want to grow your awareness and get leads and conversions from that, and you want to grow your following and become a personality, that's what we're looking for.
Very cool. Okay, so last question to wrap up here. What's the least
Yeah.
favorite thing that you see people doing from a business perspective on social channels right now?
Oh God, that's a great question. What is my least favorite thing that they'll do? You know what? I'll tell you actually. I can't believe that people are still doing this because I've been saying this for years, and I can't believe people still do this. It's that they say, "Hey, it's me. Like, let's get, hey, my name is Harrison King. Like, I'm a social media marketing influencer. Let's get into it." It's like, no, it's like, do not do that. It's like nobody wants to know. Nobody, and this is going to sound super, super harsh. I don't mean it to, but nobody cares about who you are in that moment. Okay. They're looking that the viewer of those kinds of videos are selfish. They're looking
Yeah.
for what they can get out of those videos, whether it's entertainment, education, inspiration, whatever. They're looking for something to gain from those videos. So if you can immediately start with a hook and reel them in and not talk about who you are or what you do, that's exactly what I recommend. And don't start your videos with these intros of like, "Hey guys, my name is Harrison King and I'm blah, blah, blah." It's like, please don't do that. Please.
Totally agree. I think if people want to see who you are, they'll click on your profile and like then do a
Exactly.
deep dive through your content. They don't need to
Exactly.
see that and I was going to ask you about that too when it comes to your
Yeah.
content types. You're not stopping everything and saying, "Hey, it's Dr. King from All Star Veterinary Clinic. If you're
Oh
in
my
and
God.
around, we're open Monday through Friday." Like,
it's so it's
yeah,
so it's just I can't believe people are still doing it. Like I just
yeah.
can't believe it.
Yeah, I
But
think
yeah.
that's a good insight. And I noticed too, even when it's a good hook, I won't be patient enough. I'll just swipe through. If they start talking
Yeah.
or taking too long to
Yeah.
get to the point, it's like stop with the setup.
Yeah.
You already hooked me. Like get to it
Yeah.
already. Totally
Exactly.
agree.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a whole, I mean, you can find this stuff, I mean, all over the place, but like there's a certain equation that you can follow to really dial down like how your videos need to be formatted. And you have 2 seconds to hook the viewer. So like
Yep.
if you can just get those 2 seconds down and then follow the rest of the equation, you're good to go. It's a recipe for success.
Very good. I agree with that for sure. It's good,
Yeah.
good reminder for sure. Well, thank you so much, Harrison. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it. We'll put all of your links on the show
Mhm.
notes, but it's kingmediamarketing.com.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.